All right, my friends, how are you today? Aaron Michael Eschenberg here, Honest Aim, bringing you some honest astrology. We're going to talk about how to survive the Mercury Retrograde in Scorpio. All right. Number one, you don't have to worry how to survive the Mercury retrograde, okay? This happens 3 times a year. Mercury retrograde is the most, besides a full moon or an eclipse, the retrograde has seemingly crept up to the top of every person's tongue, although we know very little about it, okay? It's become common knowledge that they exist, that they happen. And then I see 3 times a year, every 88 days, Mercury goes around the sun. And when it gets closer to Earth, when the antennas get closer together, all right, that's the retrograde period, when it appears to be moving backward when it's coming around. All right, so it's just like 2 cars on the expressway, and one's going faster than the other, but you go around a bend, and it looks like you pass it. And then it passes you because it's actually going faster. It's like that slingshot kind of a thing. That's what the retrograde is. It doesn't actually move backward. Okay, Mercury doesn't start going backward. No, heliocentrically, if you look at everything, the sun in the middle, all the planets just go around in a circle. Okay, geocentrically, which is astrology, it's from Earth's perspective. So we're watching the planets move from Earth's perspective, not heliocentrically from the center, the sun. Okay, so we see everything from Earth's perspective. Now, that's why we get these retrogrades. So when the planets come closer between the sun and Earth, the antenna gets closer. All right, so what is Mercury? Mercury is our planet of communication, our planet of information. It is how we talk back and forth to one another. It's how we barter. It's how we trade. All right, it's the internet. Okay, it's information that's out there in the world. Again, simple communication information, as well as how we think, all right, which is extremely important. How we think and how we communicate. Very, very important, because the words that we use change us, okay? On a cellular level, the words that we use to communicate with ourselves, how we talk to ourselves, if I'm sitting here, oh, you're so stupid, like that has an effect on me on a cellular level, all right? So during this retrograde, there's going to be a lot of stuff coming up. We're revisiting and reviewing. Now, that's one of the greatest things about retrograde time. Again, this is very, very exciting. This is very needed and very, very necessary part of the change of where we're going, okay? Very necessary, and it's exciting. It's not something to be feared. It's not something to be dreaded. Now, here's some things that we hear often when it comes to Mercury retrograde. Do not travel. Don't go on vacation. Do not buy a new home. Don't buy a new car. Do not sign any contracts. Basically, I don't know which astrologers are out there that are telling you to not live during a Mercury retrograde, but it is the farthest from the truth, okay? All we're doing is slowing down. Our planet of communication, our planet of information is slowing down, and the antenna is becoming closer to Earth. So what we need to do is slow it down, all right? We need to review. We need to look at things, okay? So if I'm going to write an email here to a boss, to a friend I haven't seen, to a potential client, okay, to my mom, who knows, whatever. If I'm going to write a letter, write an email, it's like, okay, making sure, slowing down so that we read everything thoroughly, that we make sure that we've hit all of our points, that we stop right now, and now we have to follow the North Node and be empathetic, put our compass toward compassion. Okay, so when we're communicating, whatever is coming out, because this is deep-rooted stuff. We're talking about the sign of Scorpio. We're talking about this deep-rooted stuff, deep-rooted information, deep-rooted stuff about ourselves is coming to light. Like, you might be a wonderful, beautiful human being. You are. I know you are, right? But you've done some pretty messed up stuff, As caring and as loving as you are, you hurt somebody. You said something, you did something, okay? And that might have happened, and the separation happened, and you walked off thinking, they had it coming, this or that or the other. This can be a time where that gets revisited and says, wow, I was a total idiot the way I handled that. Okay? The way that I handled my emotions with this other individual, it was wrong of me. You know, things like that can be revisited, and it needs to be. Okay, because Venus has gone through Scorpio. Mercury's at the 27th degree of Scorpio. It's going to be there for a couple days. Venus is now pushing ahead over into Sagittarius to learn new information. All right, so what we're going to do is be learning new information while we're revisiting the shadow side of ourselves, the fixed sign of Scorpio. Okay, so this can be the parts of us that are stubborn. All right, Mercury rules two mutable signs, Gemini and Virgo. Mutable signs, they're fast, they're quick to adapt to change. The fixed signs, Leo, Pisces, Taurus, and Aquarius, are not as adaptable to change. They're fixed for a reason. Okay? So there is a deep-rooted fixed nature inside of self. There is a stubbornness to ourselves, all right, that we're not willing to let go of. But it's gonna happen no matter what. We've got Uranus, the great awakener, shaking things up in Taurus, the shadow side of Scorpio. Okay, nothing. You know, that's the big rototiller coming through, saying if you want this ground to be a garden, you have to dig up this ground. You can't just plant, you know, a garden here in this soil. We have to shake it up. We have to turn this. As nice as the lawn is, if you want a beautiful garden, this must be done. So the lawn's been there for a long time, and we need to shake it up, right? So we're taking our rototiller, we're planting a beautiful garden. We're changing our lives. We're planting the seeds of the new life, you know, planting the the rockets of desire. We're launching those off. I love that, Abraham Hicks, if you know her. So we're planting the seeds here, and we have to, you know, a great amount of change is necessary through that. We're letting go of addictions, okay? We're becoming aware of these addictions. We're becoming aware of our habits. We're becoming aware of the things that we do that are hurtful to our relationships to others. Because Scorpio is a sign about shared resources as well. Is like, you know, what I have and my skills and what I can do and what you have and your skills and what you can do, and then together, you know, we can create something even greater than self. So it's also recognizing our relationships with other people, you know, being kind. Are we being compassionate? Are we doing the internal work ourselves to have those greater relationships? Okay. Now, Mercury retrograde, just in general, you know, again, that don't sign contracts, don't travel on vacation, don't do all of these things, could not be further from the truth. What it's saying is, if we're doing those things right now, again, this happens for, you know, it retrogrades for 3 weeks, and then it moves through its shadow for a couple of weeks, you know, 3 times a year. This is a quarter of our year. So, you know, so whoever spread this fear, uncertainty, and doubt, saying don't live for a quarter of the year every time Mercury retrogrades, again, could not be further from the truth. What this is telling us to do is to pay more attention, to be more present. You know, be present in what we're doing and focus on the task at hand, whatever's in front of us. Now, in the sign of Scorpio, the task at hand is going deep within self. Okay, for years, we've been sweeping stuff under the rug. All right, this retrograde season, specifically in Scorpio, is bringing that stuff up. We're going to find things about ourselves that we don't like. We're going to find things about ourselves that we love. Okay, the job is to shine the light on these shadows. Okay, now this is so very important. Again, if you're new to this channel, I do these daily horoscopes every single day. You know, something specific like this being a Mercury retrograde video, it's so very important, again, to if you're new coming onto this, to share this positivity, because it is such a positive thing that it's heartbreaking to see how many people say, oh, Mercury retrograde, I'm going to hide underneath my pillow. I'm going to hide under the covers. I'm not going to show my face. I'm not going to communicate. I'm not going to go out there and do the work that needs to get done. So what we're doing is we're sweeping stuff under the rug. It's only going to hurt us in the long run. The longer that we procrastinate, all right? Procrastination and masturbation feel great to realize you're just screwing yourself. kind of a heavy one, but it's, it's funny, but it's the absolute truth. It's like doing the inner work is extremely important right now. Okay. I'm going to show you the chart for a quick second here, just to show you what's going on. Now, Mercury's here at 27 degrees. North node here, 11. Neptune, 16. Now, we've had this really beautiful water trine, emotional water trine. We're sinking to the bottom of things, allowing ourselves to be compassionate, allowing ourselves to be empathetic, to see, the other side of the coin. Mars and Libra are still working on our relationships over here. Here, we're working on loving ourselves. We're working on acknowledging these parts of ourselves that we just simply deny. Let me come back here for a second. It was just Halloween. We love Halloween. There's a reason why The Nightmare Before Christmas was a very successful film. It's Christmas, but it's Halloween. We are drawn to the dark shadow side of things. There's a reason why like Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter, wizardry and witches and witchcraft, positive light witchcraft or whatever, or dark witchcraft. There's a reason why that was a #1 book and a extremely successful movie franchise, because we have a curiosity to the shadow side of life. We have a curiosity to this kind of work, to the mystery. Okay, there's a reason why 50 Shades of Grey was a #1 seller and a very popular movie franchise. Sex, Money, Power, Scorpio. Okay, the mystery of the occult. We deny ourselves of things that are very natural, our own sexual identity. You start talking about sexual identity and people kind of freak out sometimes, but it's like we all are on this planet from an orgasm. Is that weird to hear? Because it's the absolute truth. There's nothing wrong with owning our own sexual identity, with being a sexual being, Nothing wrong with being in general. But we have, it's like we want to dabble in the shadow work, but essentially we kind of want to push it away. Same with this, things about self. It's like, who are we? What are we doing when it comes to like going inside of our own shadows? We want to stay on the surface, and that's just not possible. That's not possible for our own growth and expansion. When we're talking about Neptune here in the middle degrees of Pisces, this is about our expansion. We're lining up with our dreams. Okay, we are creating the dream life. Saturn here in Capricorn wants to make this very real. Now, this retrograde is going to go all the way back to 11 degrees. Okay? Mercury, I'll just show you here. We'll just do it together. I'll just go by weeks to speed it up. All right. I went too far. Days. There we go. 11 degrees. Retrograde all the way to 11 degrees. What does that mean? It means, one, we're going to be connecting again really strongly with the south node. Sextiling to the north node, sextiling to the south node. Okay, so whatever is going on that we're afraid of, we can release it. Now, this is going to take weeks of work. This doesn't come until the 20th of November. Okay, the 19th maybe you'll get there. All right, 19th, 20th. Okay, so that weekend of the 22nd, 23rd is going to be a very, very powerful weekend when the retrograde is over. All right. So what does this mean as well? It means that Mercury will create the sextile to Pluto. It's going to create the sextile to Saturn. Okay? So it had already gone forward and created those aspects once, and now it's going to be moving backward, hitting them again, and then stopping here at 11 degrees and then moving forward. Finally coming out of its shadow to 28 degrees on December 3rd here, I do believe. If we scroll ahead, maybe it's the 7th. All right, so it's the 7th, December 7th, Mercury finally leaves its shadow. Okay, we have a lot of work to do until then. And there's absolutely no getting away from this. There's no running from self. You can run from everyone in your life, but you cannot run from yourself. You cannot run from the man in the mirror or the eye staring back at you, or the man or a woman in the mirror. We cannot hide from these parts of self. We cannot hide from our shadow. It is a part of us. Embrace it. All right. Another big thing about the retrograde is is this terrible misconception of a fight, that it's a war against this retrograde. So much of the Western thinking, and this is a big thing that's going to be highlighted during this retrograde, is the war. The war on drugs, and the fight against cancer, and the fight against, the fight of the middle class to the upper, it's like everything is looked at as a fight. Okay, and like I said earlier in this video, it's so important, our words and how we understand things. It's like, Here, this is very, very important. Mother Teresa said, "I will never go to an anti-war rally, but invite me to a pro-peace rally." Why is that? Because if you're anti-something, if you're anti-war, you're against. This is against something. If you're pro-peace, you're for something. You're activating this. Okay? If you're against, you're against. There's resistance. All right? Path of least resistance. What you resist persists. Okay? Very, very, very important to remember right now. What you resist persists. So follow the path of least resistance. If we're feeling change, if we're needing change, this is really important. All right? Venus and Mercury had already visited all these aspects, all of these places of Scorpio before the hero, the sun, self. Okay? Venus is what we want, what we love, what we desire. All right. Mercury is how we think. All right. It's how can I get what I want, love, and desire? I'm going to use my head. All right. And then Mars is our planet of action, which reaches and grasps those things. Okay. So Venus and Mercury have already passed through all this stuff, meaning we've been thinking and feeling that we need change. We've been thinking and feeling we need to do this inner work. We're thinking and feeling ready, but we weren't ready. The sun itself was still back in Libra and saying like, hey man, this is the end of my summer. This is the beginning of fall. There's no way I'm going to sit down and do this inner work right now. I don't know who I'm going to be when I'm done. And I'm scared about that. I don't know who I'm going to be when I'm done with this inner work. I want to focus on being sociable and hanging out with my friends. Halloween's coming up, all of these things. So there was a proper excuse, or a reason even, of why we weren't doing the work, although we were feeling like we needed to do the work, okay? Well, now the sun is here. The sun is in Scorpio as well. And it's saying, I'm showing up. I'm ready, okay? The beginning of this retrograde, really excitingly, the moon is in Capricorn, which is like, I'm ready to do the work. I'm going to climb to the top of this mountain. I'm going to clean every cobweb from the corners of my soul. I'm going to, sponge bath and like power wash my guts so that I'm squeaky clean and new. It's just like if you've had a traumatic ending of a relationship, the sweeping the stuff under the rug is jumping into a new relationship and filling that void, right? Like, oh, somebody loves me, or somebody cares about me, or the physical sensation of touch, even if somebody doesn't love you, right? Sometimes just that can be a desirable thing, but ultimately it's just sweeping under the rug. We're not really, that's not the relationship that we're after, because we haven't done that work yet. Basically, we're going to repeat the same patterns. Those same patterns are going to come up in the next relationship that came up in the past one, because we didn't do the inner work. Same thing karmically. Again, if you're a really wonderful person and you might have did something really screwed up a couple years ago, or done something to somebody, this is really highlighting our relationships right now. So whether that's a boss, a parent, a loved one, a friend, a partner, business partner, or partnership, spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is, if something could have happened, you might be a wonderful person. We could have done something years ago, walked away. And if we haven't done the work to correct these things, what this person didn't do to retaliate on this end, because they cared, right? This is important to understand, because this is how karma comes back and bites us. So what this person didn't retaliate because they cared about you. The boss didn't say this or whatever. The partner didn't say do whatnot. Let you have it. Let you get away with it because they cared. Or the next time this comes around, because like once bitten, you think you can get away with it again, but it's just like the same actions you said it to a Viking warrior and you didn't know it, and they have no problem clubbing you in the head and splitting your skull open. You know, again, that's a really extreme way to look at it, but that's the kind of karma that comes with this. So if we don't do the work, we're thinking we can get away with doing or saying and being these ways, and it's absolutely unacceptable. Now, when we're dealing with water signs, we deal with freezing over, okay? And with Scorpio, the king and queen of the freeze, all right? Meaning, everyone knows the Scorpio is so very passionate, the passionate lovers, the mysterious person, and really, you know, intriguing Scorpio energy. But if you cross them, they're going to grab you with their pinchers, they're going to sting you, then they're going to burrow in that little sand hole and you'll never see them again. The water's freezing over, all right? Now, once the water freezes over, what's beneath the surface stays beneath the surface, and what's above stays above. There's no connecting these two worlds together, okay? Now, Scorpio rules the underworld. So, another fun way to look at this is what? Water that stands still freezes. Now here in Detroit, we know that for sure. Now you look at the Detroit River, that water doesn't stop moving, okay? Like this retrograde, we've gone through and we're coming back. We're creating ripples. We're creating an acceleration in these waves. We're not allowing this water to freeze and just move on ahead. We're revisiting this stuff, keeping this open. Not necessarily keeping an open wound, but we're making sure that we feel all of these feels right now, which are so important to feel, because it's extremely important for a part of our personal expansion, okay? Hands down the most important thing that I'm going to say in this video. One, this is extremely positive. Two, it's positive. No ones and twos. Just, this is extremely positive. It's extremely positive retrograde. And especially if we're doing the work, if we're not running, if we're not cowering, if we're not hiding, if we're not freezing over, okay? Because what we need to be doing is communicating this stuff. Whatever we're feeling deep down inside of us, there's a reason that that's there. And if we just bury these feelings, we're going to get an ulcer. It will come out in the form of dis-ease, okay? It will come out in the form of dis-ease, whatever we're burying down. Open up, okay? Allow ourselves to feel this stuff. Now, we've been dealing a lot with, since Neptune has been in Pisces in general, we're dealing with two sides of a coin, of an opioid epidemic, addictions so bad that we're escaping reality any way that we can. Opioids is one, alcohol, any kind of drug use, you know, or over too much social media distracting us from life, or even watching television. You know, we understand that there's a distraction here of like, this life is hard and I don't want to deal with it. Life is hard and I want to overcome whatever it is that I'm dealing with. You know, we want to use this in the form of self-empowerment, not disempowerment. We don't want to say, oh, you know, it's cold, I'm not going to go outside today. It's like, well, how are you going to eat tomorrow if you don't go do the work today? You know, that's not how we're going to survive here. Sustainability is definitely the key. You know, so by burying stuff down isn't a sustainable way to live. It's by being honest with ourselves. There's a reason why we're feeling these things. There's a reason why. And if I'm honest with myself and bring this to the surface, okay, don't keep it buried down underneath the water. Bringing it up into the light so it can be, you know, I made this analogy yesterday on Halloween. It's just like we're cleaning the pumpkin guts and we're presenting our jack-o'-lantern. And it's absolutely important to clean the pumpkin guts out before presenting the jack-o'-lantern, you know? And with Saturn and Pluto up in Capricorn and Mercury making the sextile connection to Saturn, to Pluto, and to the North Node, or the South Node, excuse me, the fact that it's hitting these things 3 times before it gets out of there, it's saying, I want you to transform your life. I need you to transform the way that you're thinking, the way that you're feeling right now, the way that you're communicating with the outside world. Are we being as compassionate and as open as we can be? You know, it's extremely easy for us to walk up to an animal and be like, oh my God, I love your dog. And then to the person, we give them a handshake, you know, and stand back 5 feet with a nod, you know, and it's very cold. And we're changing the way we approach this. We're changing the way we're dealing with other people, our relationships. Again, this is an exciting time, and not freezing over, to not cower, but to use this as a tool of empowerment, right? We're changing, literally changing our lives. Changing our lives right now. We want to be present for that. We want to be present. We want to give it our all. You know, it's just like if you had one opportunity, you know, I said this in one of my dailies a couple days ago, you know, and it seems appropriate for this Mercury retrograde right now. Again, keeping that water flowing, not freezing over, and looking at our life. You know, we don't know what grows under the things that don't move. We don't know what's happening inside the shadows until we actually put our light onto it. And to ask ourselves a couple questions here that can, you know, allow us to be more present and to do this work is extremely important. You know, like if you knew you weren't going to fail at something, if you knew that whatever you had your mind set on doing, that you were going to succeed, what would you do? What would you accomplish with that? You know you're not going to fail. What if you had unlimited resources? It wasn't about finances holding you back. You know, who or what would you be doing? What would you be doing with this? You know, write these things down and you know, focus on this during the retrograde. And then further, if you had 60 days left to live, if this was the last, would you be complaining about the Mercury retrograde if you had 60 days left to live? Would you be saying, oh, I can't jump on a plane and go to Fiji right now because it's a Mercury retrograde and some idiot astrologer out there said to not travel? I don't mean to badmouth any other photographer, astrologer, but when we spread fear, uncertainty, and doubt, you know, it's the worst thing in the world because, you know, people look at us. It's just like the weatherman saying it's going to rain today. You know, it's like if I'm the weatherman saying, hey, it's going to rain because I want, you know, I don't want anybody else on the golf field, golf course. Can you tell I'm not a golfer? The golf field. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, let's go back to that. The weatherman. You know, the weatherman says, hey, here we are in Metro Detroit. It's going to be minus 20 and it's going to snow. If I show up without a coat on, I'm going to be miserable, okay? The weather dude, the person who studies the weather, just told me it's going to be freezing. It's going to be, you know, snowy. If I chose to not listen to that advice and just say, oh, whatever, I'm I'm Wim Hof. I can get out here and just breathe and you know, fire up my internal furnace. You know, unless I am Wim Hof, which I'm definitely not, although I try that stuff. That's magic. Anyway, you understand what I'm saying here. So just the same, if we ignore the retrograde, if we ignore these signs of like saying, hey, it's time to review, it's time to rethink, it's time to do the soul searching. If we ignore this, yes, we're going to have a harder time during the retrograde, okay? Because you're going to be kicking and screaming. Now look at it like this. We're changing our lives for the better. Every one of us is changing our lives for the better. We're letting go of things for the better. Now, that can become painful. No question about it. That's painful, you know? But we're also being able to see things under a different light. You know, I've said this many times on my channel, like I can look back and say this at the point in time, the point of impact was traumatic, caused me great pain, grief. I reclused, went inside and internal. It was very difficult for me to deal with this. I didn't feel love or all of these things. And then I can look back at that exact same instance years and years later and say it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And look at the path I went down. And because I didn't feel this, I sought this. And because I sought this, I learned this. And because I learned this, I was able to accomplish this. And because I accomplished this, I was able to do that. And because I did that, this happened. And that brought joy to this person. That joy to this person brought this. So it's like so difficult to look and say that the black square on the checkerboard is negative and the white square on the checkerboard is positive. And this positive thing, you know, negative things lead to positive things. Positive things lead to negative things. So which is it really? This Mercury retrograde in Scorpio is going to be highlighting that information for us. What we think was solid was very not solid. What we thought was whimsical is more concrete than ever. What we thought was a negative was maybe the most positive thing in our lives. Maybe the most negative person was the most positive influence we've ever had, and maybe the exact opposite. And so it's just like, what if we're wrong about everything? Are we willing to question that? Are we willing to give up something that we're holding on to? A single bar can be a prison if we hold on to it long enough. And just same as that, like the glass half full or half empty, it doesn't matter if you're optimistic or pessimistic. When you're looking at the glass, if you're holding on to it, the longer you hold on to that glass, the heavier and heavier and heavier it becomes, to where the point it's unbearable to hold the weight anymore. This retrograde is going to allow us to set the glass down, to look at it for what it is, and let go of the weight. Okay, it's the most beautiful thing that we can ask for right now. And keeping that channel of communication open by connecting with ourselves on that deep internal level, bringing that stuff up and not being shy, not running from this, not running from our own shadows. Again, there's a reason why all those things, like I said earlier, were #1 sellers, and scary stories to tell at the dark. Goosebumps. Oh my God, I used to love Goosebumps as a kid. Our imaginations, our minds, we have a yearning to go in this direction, but we just want to dip a toe. And this retrograde cycle is saying, do more than dip a toe right now. Plunge into this. It's part of who you are, okay? Your shadow is part of who you are. Your dark side is part of who you are. Your deepest desires are part of who you are. And there's another common miss that's going on right now. And this retrograde will solve this, should solve this for a lot of people, is there's this deeper desire, a deeper yearning and want for something, and then there's the thought that I don't deserve it, that I'm not good enough to achieve it, that yes, this is really cool, but it's not for me. Oh, you can do that, but I can't. And these are just like all this, the retrograde myths that I'm hopefully trying to debunk right now. It's the same. You are beautiful. You are perfect. You are worth it. Every little thing in here that your child self wanted and desired, you deserve it. Don't cheat yourself. This is your life. It's not your neighbor's. It's not your boss's life. It's not, you're allowed to want. You're allowed to feel. You're allowed to desire. And don't deny yourself of something so beautiful. Okay, and we're allowed to bring these things from deep in the core of the belly of ourselves and bring them up and let them shine through our heart. Okay, and if we do that work, and if we bring this stuff here and just shine and just allow ourselves to just be, and that's the beauty of this North Node connection happening down there in Cancer, is about authenticity. It's just about being, being silly. It's like when somebody is so happy that they giggle, it doesn't matter who you are. It's like, it can be a cute sound, but it's almost kind of like, it's not that premeditated laugh, like, yeah, like you're not trying to be slick, it's a giggle, like something got to you and you felt it. That giggle is enlightenment. You know what I mean? To understand a joke and to laugh is as simple as form of enlightenment. And being true to ourselves. Like, it's so easy to, again, like I said about the animal, to watch an animal video and to just smile and be overwhelmed with that joy. And it's okay to share that smile on your face and wear that and not be like, what are you so happy about? Sometimes other people want to push us down, but it's not other people's lives that we're living. It's ours. We have to answer to ourselves. And at the end of the day, if I say, man, I denied myself of my happiness, or I deny myself of this, I'm trying to, well, what is this? People spend money that they don't have on things they don't need, trying to impress people that they don't really like. So it's like, well, why? Why would I do that? Maybe it's time to revisit and rethink that mentality and align with my true nature, and laugh and play like a kid on the playground, you know, and align myself with that god or goddess, the king, the queen, you know, that archetype that we embody during Halloween time, you know, when we allow ourselves, when we allow our shadow to come out and play, you know. So we're revisiting this shadow right now, and it's just like, it's time for the inner child to come out, the inner child in the highest self to connect right here and right here, and to not be afraid to communicate everything that's going on deep down here. All right? And it comes out in strategic, methodical communication, which is the beauty part, because all this stuff up in Capricorn is saying, like, we're not going to ruin our reputation right now by saying this stuff. You know, 10th house, public image, Capricorn, Saturn, Pluto are both up in Capricorn, right? So it's like, we're not, you know, it's a back here. We don't have to worry about ruining our reputation by being honest of who we are. By being honest of who we are is going to gain us the reputation that we need to propel us. If we hold that back and we deny these things, you know, it's like, again, what if the Harry Potter was never written because it was too, you know, or we're burning witches for knowing math, you know. 102 years ago, we're burning, or not burning, but arresting women for marching in front of the White House to vote. Things change. Necessary change, okay? Put ourselves out there. Don't be afraid to be the one marching, because that created the change necessary for today. All right? So don't be afraid of this retrograde in wrapping this up right now. Don't be afraid of this retrograde. Do not be afraid of your shadow. Don't be afraid of yourself. Embrace this. Love yourself. Love the unknown. Love the mystery. Love the change. Love letting go. Fall in love with life. You know, I don't know. We're going to make it through this. You know, we're going to make it through this. And I'm telling you, by December 7th, when Mercury leaves its shadow and hits that 28th degree of Scorpio before it moves into Sagittarius, we will be very different people. I promise you. And it's going to be so much for the better. So please, and I never ask to share or like these videos. I do them every single day. I don't try to peddle and push stuff. But as far as the positive aspect of the retrogrades go, it's so powerful. It's so positive. Please share the positivity of it. Even not with the video, just share that, like, yes, you can live your life. Yes, you can get out there. Yes, sign your contracts. Just read it. Just don't be like, oh, sure, downloaded a new app. I agree to everything. And it's just like, oh my God, where is this $40 a month charge coming from? Did you read what you signed? No. That's where it's going to bite you. You know? Can you go on vacation? Absolutely. Just make sure, you don't have, if you forgot your toothbrush, not a big deal. You forget your passport, very big deal. Make sure you got everything. Make sure you've packed everything. It's making sure that we're not putting the carriage before the horse and we're not rushing ahead. That's what the beauty of this is, okay? It's not raining cats and dogs. It's not raining metal shards. You don't have to hide out in your bed and not get out. Because here's another thing. People are depressed. People are depressed, okay? People are going to start to get, the seasonal depression. We are dealing with our shadow. We're dealing with the things that, man, I was a jerk. I'm a nice person, but I was an idiot. And now I deserve to beat myself up. At least for a day. At least for a day I deserve to beat myself up because I was wrong, Because it would be not right of me to be wrong and then to just skip ahead like nothing happened. So I deserve to beat myself up today. We say things like this to ourselves. Maybe not those exact words, but you know what I'm saying. And it's just like, your friend who you haven't heard from in a while, they might be going through that. So in a time where we can, communication-wise, slow down, start to freeze over, we want to maintain that openness. We want to ask, are you okay? How are you doing? I know you lost a family member about a year ago. How are you doing? Reaching out right now, being empathetic, being compassionate, being communicative leads to our personal expansion. changing our lives, okay? So definitely something important right now. We're all going through a great amount of change. So please, your brothers and sisters, the people that you love, reach out. Talk about this stuff. Talk about your change. Talk about your personal growth. Because you might say something, just like I said in this video here, something that was traumatic for me was the best thing of my life. That at the time I wouldn't have changed. That the time I would have said, I'll take anything over this pain that I'm feeling. And now it's just like, I wouldn't want more of it, but I'm thankful for every ounce that I felt. You know what I mean? So again, if we can share those vulnerable things like that with one another, of how we're feeling, it can be very powerful and lead to a great amount of healing. Okay? So be open, be loving, be compassionate. Don't be afraid to talk. This is a really powerful, very powerful Mercury retrograde, and we're all going to do just fine. There's a light at the end of this tunnel, and it's calling our name, all right? So do the work. We'll get through it. We'll see you tomorrow.